The emergency alarm broke through the quiet night shift on Earth's deep space monitoring station. Tom Miller jumped in his seat, spilling his coffee across the control panel. He quickly wiped it away and focused on the incoming transmission. The message repeated itself in a musical language he had heard only in training videos. It was from the Lumini. "This is not a drill," he said to himself, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The message was being broadcast on all frequencies, something that hadn't happened since first contact 30 years ago. As he decoded the transmission, his face grew pale. He reached for the red phone that connected directly to Fleet Command. "Sir, we have an emergency transmission from the Lumini home system," Tom reported, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "They're under attack." Across the solar system, ships of the Earth Defense Fleet received the same message. The Lumini, those gentle beings who had welcomed humanity into the galactic community, were crying for help. Their home system, usually a beacon of peace and trade, had become a battlefield. In the Fleet Command Center on Mars, Admiral Robert Walker studied the holographic display showing the Lumini system. Red dots marked the positions of the attacking ships, the Black Spine Empire's warships. The Black Spine were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors, their ships armed with energy weapons far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. "Play the message again," Walker ordered, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue light of the hologram. The air filled with the haunting tones of the Lumini language, automatically translated by the computer. "To all peaceful species of the galaxy, we plead for aid. The Black Spine Empire attacks without warning or cause. Our orbital defenses fail. Our people die. We who have never raised weapons now face extinction. Help us, we beg you." Walker remembered the first time humanity had met the Lumini. Earth had just achieved faster-than-light travel, and everyone expected the galaxy to be hostile. Instead, they found the Lumini, who shared their technology freely and helped humanity survive those crucial first years among the stars. They had asked for nothing in return. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "the Galactic Council is meeting to discuss the situation. Early reports suggest they won't intervene. The Black Spine Empire has too many allies on the Council." Walker's fist clenched. Politics. Always politics. While they debated, an entire species faced destruction. He pressed a button on his command console, connecting him to every human ship in the solar system. "This is Fleet Command. All ships prepare for immediate deployment. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Across Earth's solar system, massive engines roared to life. Ships that the rest of the galaxy called primitive began powering up their reactors. The humans had never bothered to replace their thick armor with the energy shields other species preferred. They had never switched their projectile weapons for more civilized energy beams. Now, those choices would be put to the test. In high orbit around Earth, the massive carrier, humanity's hope, began launching its fighter squadrons. Its hull was scarred from meteorite impacts during its construction in the asteroid belt. Humans were the only species that built their ships in such dangerous conditions. Captain Linda Price watched her crew prepare for battle, each of them moving with the quick, sure movements that came from training in higher gravity than most species could survive. The Galactic Council had always called humans Dithworlders, primitive beings who evolved on a planet that should have killed them. They meant it as an insult. Today, they would learn why species from high gravity, high oxygen worlds were so rare in the galaxy. Today, they would learn why humans still built their ships with thick armor and kinetic weapons. 20 minutes after receiving the distress call, the first human ships began jumping toward the Lumini system. They moved in perfect formation, their crews silent and focused. Many of them had friends among the Lumini. All of them remembered how the Lumini had helped humanity when no one else would. The Black Spine Empire had never fought humans before. They had seen Earth's ships and dismissed them as primitive. They had looked at human technology and laughed. They were about to learn what every bully eventually discovers. that the most dangerous beings in the universe are not those who fight because they want to, but those who fight because they must. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were coming to help their friends. The massive screen in Earth's United Defense Council chamber showed the burning cities of the Lumini homeworld. Ships of the Black Spine Empire moved through space like dark shadows, their weapons turning orbital stations into clouds of debris. Admiral James Stone stood before the council members, his face lit by the grim footage. Not 20 years ago, these same council chambers had hosted the first Lumini delegation. Stone remembered that day clearly. He was just a young captain then. The Lumini had brought gifts of advanced medical technology and star maps, asking nothing in return except friendship. Now they needed help, and Stone intended to make sure humanity answered that call. The Lumini helped us when every other species called us primitive, Stone said, his voice filling the silent chamber. They shared their knowledge when others wanted to keep us isolated. They treated us as equals when the galaxy labeled us as Deathworlders. He paused, letting his words sink in. Now they face extinction. The council members watched as more footage played across the screen. The Black Spine ships were using energy weapons that cut through the Lumini's defenses like paper. The Lumini, having never developed weapons of their own, were helpless against the assault. Our ships are ready, Stone continued. The 7th Fleet can reach their system in 3 days. Yes, the Black Spine have more advanced technology. Yes, they have energy weapons that can cut a normal ship in half, but they've never fought humans before. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They've never fought Deathworlders. One of the council members leaned forward. The Galactic Council has advised against intervention. They say it's not our fight. Stone's reply was immediate. When we nearly died from the Gray Plague, the Lumini sent their doctors to help us. They said it was not their fight either. They helped because it was right. The council chamber grew quiet. Everyone remembered the Gray Plague, a disease that had nearly wiped out Earth's colonies. The Galactic Council had quarantined the affected systems, ready to let millions die to protect their own borders. But the Lumini had come, breaking the quarantine to bring medicine and aid. Another council member spoke up. The Black Spine Empire has 10 times our fleet's strength. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. They have delicate ships designed for their low-gravity worlds, Stone countered. Beautiful vessels that have never been tested against kinetic weapons. Ships commanded by crews who can barely stand under their own power in Earth's gravity. He pointed to the screen. We build our ships in the asteroid belt. We train our crews under 3 times normal gravity. They call us primitive. Let them learn why we still use armor plate instead of energy shields. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Stone waited patiently. He knew what the vote would be. He could see it in their eyes. Humans might be new to the galaxy, but they had long memories when it came to friendship. The council president stood. Admiral Stone, you have your authorization. The 7th Fleet is cleared for immediate deployment to the Lumini system. Within hours, ships began moving out of Earth's orbital dockyards. They were ugly by galactic standards. Blocky shapes of thick armor plate, studded with railgun turrets and missile pods. Ships that could survive hits that would vaporize the elegant vessels of other species. In his command chair aboard the flagship, Terra's Vengeance, Stone watched the fleet form up for its faster-than-light jump. The Lumini would hold on for 3 more days. They had to. All ships, this is Admiral Stone, he broadcast to the fleet. 20 years ago, the Lumini welcomed us to the stars when others would have turned us away. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity repays its debts. He looked at the tactical display, showing hundreds of ships ready for jump. We are called Deathworlders because we survived a planet that should have killed us. Today, the Black Spine Empire learns what that really means. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth's orbit empty. In the council chamber, the members watched them go. They had just committed Earth to its first interstellar war. But as they looked at the images of burning Lumini cities, none of them doubted their decision. Humanity was going to war, not for territory or resources or glory, but because someone had hurt their friends. The galaxy was about to learn why that was a terrible mistake. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Lumini space. The ship's sensors immediately lit up with warnings. Two black-spined scout vessels hung in the darkness ahead, their sleek forms a stark contrast to the bulky human warships. On the bridge of Terra's Vengeance, Admiral Stone watched the enemy ships through the main viewport. They were beautiful things, all smooth lines and glowing energy fields. Next to them, his flagship looked like a floating brick with guns. "Enemy vessels are scanning us, sir," reported the sensor officer. "They seem confused." Stone smiled. Of course they were confused. Human ships didn't show up on sensors like other species' vessels. Too much armor, too many backup systems, too primitive by galactic standards. The Black Spine ships sent a transmission. Their commander appeared on the main screen, tall and elegant like all their kind. His expression showed the familiar mix of disgust and amusement that most advanced species had when dealing with humans. "Deathworlders," the commander said, making the word sound like something dirty. "This conflict is beyond your understanding. Return to your gravity well and continue playing with your crude weapons." Stone's response was to launch a single missile, not at the Black Spine ships, but at a piece of space debris floating between them. The missile hit the debris at a fraction of its top speed, shattering it. Stone watched the Black Spine commander's eyes widen as his sensors registered the missile's velocity. "That was at 10% power," Stone said calmly. "Would you like to see what our crude weapons do at full strength?" The Black Spine ships retreated, jumping away into faster-than-light travel. They would warn their fleet, but that was exactly what Stone wanted. Let them come prepared for a fight. Let them bring their best weapons and strongest shields. "All ships, battle formations," Stone ordered. "They'll be back, and they'll bring friends." He was right. 2 hours later, the sensors detected multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 30 Black Spine warships, their energy weapons already charging. "They've deployed their shields," reported the tactical officer. "Our energy weapons won't penetrate." "We're not going to use energy weapons," Stone replied. "All ships, initiate Operation Thunderstorm. Load kinetic penetrators." The human fleet's railguns rotated into position. The Black Spine had forgotten, or never knew, why humans still used physical ammunition. Energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They worked perfectly against lasers and plasma. But against good old-fashioned metal slugs moving at relativistic speeds, that was a different story. The first volley of kinetic rounds streaked across space. The Black Spine shields flared brilliantly as they tried to stop the projectiles. But physics was physics. The shields could only absorb so much kinetic energy before failing, and humans had centuries of experience at throwing very heavy things very fast. 3 Black Spine ships died in the first exchange. Their shields collapsed under the barrage of kinetic rounds, their beautiful hulls crumpling like paper. The survivors scattered, trying to get out of the human fleet's firing arc. "They're adapting," Stone observed. "Moving to energy weapon range. Prepare for impact." The Black Spine energy weapons were everything the reports had claimed. Beams of pure destruction lanced out across space, hitting the human ships. But where other species' vessels would have been cut in half, the human ships took the hits. Their thick armor glowed red-hot but held. More importantly, their crews kept fighting. "Hull temperature critical," shouted an engineering officer as another beam hit them. "Maintain course," Stone ordered. "Show them what Deathworlders are made of." The human crews, trained in high gravity and built to survive conditions that would kill most species, kept their ships fighting even as the temperature in their command centers rose to levels that would have incapacitated other beings. Their return fire was relentless, kinetic rounds and missiles overwhelming the elegant Black Spine defenses through sheer brute force. More Black Spine ships arrived, obviously expecting to find the human fleet destroyed. Instead, they found their advance force in retreat, their perfect shields useless against humanity's primitive weapons. The battle for Lumini space had begun. The Deathworlders had drawn first blood, and the galaxy was about to learn why Earth's primitive technology was anything but obsolete. The main battle began as the bulk of the Black Spine fleet arrived in Lumini space. Their ships filled the void like angry hornets, energy weapons charging. The human fleet faced them in tight formation, their thick armor bearing the scars of the first skirmish. Incoming transmission from the Black Spine flagship called out the communications officer. The massive view screen showed their fleet commander, his face twisted with rage. "Your primitive tricks won't save you now," he snarled. "We have brought enough ships to burn through even your excessive armor. Surrender now, and we might let your species live as servants." Admiral Stone's response was to give the order that would change space warfare forever. "All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Switch to mass driver rounds." The human fleet split apart in a careful dance, each ship moving to pre-planned positions. From the outside, it looked like chaos. But Stone knew better. Every move was calculated based on centuries of warfare on Earth, adapted for space. The Black Spine fleet fired first, their energy beams lighting up space like artificial suns. They expected the human ships to evade. Instead, the human vessels turned directly into the attacks, their armor absorbing hits that would have destroyed any other species ships. "Temperature in all decks rising," reported engineering. "Hull plating at 60%. "Keep going," Stone ordered. "Get us closer." The human crews endured conditions that would have killed most species. As their ships heated up under the energy barrage, the temperature in the command centers rose past what most aliens could survive. But humans, evolved on a planet that regularly tried to kill them, kept fighting. Then the human ships reached their optimal range. "All ships, open fire," Stone commanded. The mass drivers powered up. These weren't the regular railguns they'd used before. These were the big ones, designed to throw chunks of metal at speeds that made nuclear weapons look gentle. The Black Spine watched in horror as their first line of ships disappeared, their shields useless against projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. "Impossible," the Black Spine commander's voice crackled over the comm. "Those are just primitive kinetic weapons." "No," Stone replied. "They're human weapons, designed by people who evolved throwing rocks to hunt. We just got better at throwing them." The Lumini, watching from their surviving orbital stations, saw something unprecedented. The human ships were taking hits that should have destroyed them instantly. Their crews were fighting in conditions that should have killed any living thing. And they were winning. A Black Spine cruiser exploded as 3 mass driver rounds tore through its shields and hull. The debris from its destruction became more projectiles, shredding nearby ships. The elegant Black Spine formation began to break apart. "Their shields are adapting," Tactical reported. "They're trying to modify their energy fields to stop physical objects." Stone had expected this. Switched to scatter rounds. The next volley from the human fleet wasn't solid metal. Instead, the rounds broke apart just before impact, turning each shot into a cloud of smaller projectiles. The Black Spine shields, already strained trying to stop single large objects, were overwhelmed by thousands of smaller ones. More Black Spine ships died, their beautiful hulls torn apart by humanity's primitive weapons. Their return fire was still deadly, and human ships were taking damage. But they had built their ships like the tanks that once ruled Earth's battlefields. Layers of armor, backup systems, and more armor. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "the Lumini are broadcasting something to all frequencies." Through the command center speakers came the sound of Lumini singing. It was their way of showing emotion. And right now they were singing songs of hope and victory. The sound spread through the human fleet, reminding them why they fought. The Black Spine commander's next transmission showed real fear. "What are you? How can you fight in these conditions?" "We're Deathworlders," Stone answered simply. We evolved on a planet that wanted us dead. We survived ice ages, asteroids, and our own wars. We built these primitive weapons because they work. And now you're learning why the galaxy should have taken Earth's warnings seriously. The battle raged on, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had brought war back to its basics, not about who had the fanciest technology, but about who could take the hits and keep fighting. The Deathworlders were teaching the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The Black Spine commander made his final desperate move. All ships, close to point-blank range. Their primitive weapons can't work well at close quarters. His remaining fleet surged forward, their engines pushing to maximum power. The human fleet held their position, waiting. Admiral Stone watched the enemy approach, a grim smile on his face. This was exactly what he had hoped for. All crews, prepare for extreme maneuvers, Stone ordered. Show them what Deathworlders can really do. The Black Spine ships closed in, their energy weapons blazing. At this range, every shot hit its target. Human ships' armor glowed white-hot, but still they didn't move. The Black Spine commander felt victory within his grasp. Then Stone gave his next order. All ships, execute combat pattern Echo. Marines, prepare for boarding action. The human fleet exploded into motion. Their ships spun and rolled in ways that should have killed their crews. The G-forces generated by such maneuvers would have turned most species to paste. But humans, evolved on a high-gravity world, could take it. 15 Gs and holding, reported the navigation officer, his voice trained but steady. The bridge crew was strapped into acceleration chairs, their bodies trained to handle forces that would kill most alien species instantly. The Black Spine watched in horror as human ships pulled maneuvers their own crews couldn't survive. Their carefully planned trap turned into chaos as human vessels seemed to ignore the basic laws of acceleration that limited other species. Boarding pods launched, tactical announced. Marines away. From the human ships came swarms of small craft, each carrying troops in powered armor. The Black Spine had never considered the possibility of boarding actions in space combat. Their ship's internal gravity was set to their homeworld's standard, 1/3 of Earth's. The first boarding pod cut through the hull of a Black Spine cruiser. Marine Team Alpha burst into corridors designed for beings used to low gravity. The Black Spine crew, already struggling with the high G-forces of combat, found themselves facing humans who thought their ship's gravity was uncomfortably light. "This is Alpha Team," the Marine commander reported. "Enemy crew is unable to effectively resist in their own artificial gravity. We are proceeding to their engine room." On the Lumini observation stations, the watching aliens could hardly believe what they saw. The humans were fighting in conditions that should have been lethal. Their ships were pulling maneuvers that ignored safe limits. Their boarding parties were running in full armor through ships where most species would barely be able to walk. A Black Spine ship exploded as its human boarders overloaded its engines. Another went dark as Marines seized its control center. The Black Spine commander watched his perfect trap fall apart as these primitive Deathworlders turned the laws of physics against him. "What kind of monsters are you?" he demanded over the command channel, his voice shaking. Stone's reply was calm. "We're not monsters. We're just humans. We evolved throwing spears at animals 10 times our size. We learned to fight while carrying half our body weight in armor. We built our bodies to survive a world that throws hurricanes and earthquakes at us. And now we're teaching you why attacking our friends was a mistake." More human boarding pods launched. More Black Spine ships fell silent or exploded. Their crews, bred for a gentle world with low gravity, couldn't match humans in close combat. Their ships, designed for elegant energy weapon duels at long range, had no defense against enemies who could endure their internal conditions better than they could. The Lumini sang again, their musical voices carrying across space, but this time they sang songs of awe and fear. They watched their human allies fight in ways they had thought impossible. They saw the feared Black Spine Empire learn what it meant to face beings evolved on a death world. Stone turned to his crew, all of them drenched in sweat from fighting under extreme G-forces, but still at their posts. Send the word to all ships. Push them back. Show them why humanity still trains for close combat in space. The battle had reached its turning point. The Black Spine's technological superiority meant nothing against enemies who could outfight them in their own ships. The Deathworlders were no longer just winning. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson about the real meaning of strength. The Black Spine commander stood in his flagship's control room, watching his mighty fleet crumble before these primitive Deathworlders. His crew begged him to retreat, but pride kept him from giving the order. His empire had never lost a battle, and he refused to be the first commander to run from lesser beings. All remaining ships, form up on my position, he ordered. We will show these humans what true advanced warfare looks like. On the Terra's Vengeance, Admiral Stone watched the enemy fleet regroup. His own ships had taken damage. Armor plates burned through, internal systems strained, crews exhausted, but not one human vessel had retreated. Sir, his tactical officer reported, enemy ships are forming a sphere formation. Energy readings are off the charts. They're charging something big. Stone nodded. They're going to try to overload our armor with a concentrated blast. All ships, prepare for combat pattern Omega. Marine teams, stand ready. The Black Spine ships linked their energy weapons, creating a web of power between them. It was their most advanced battle technique, one that had destroyed entire fleets. The combined energy of 30 ships could vaporize a small moon. Let them fire first, Stone ordered. Show them what Earth's children can take. The Black Spine weapon fired. A beam of pure energy, more powerful than anything ever used in combat, struck the human fleet. Ship's armor turned white-hot instantly. Internal temperatures soared past survivable levels for any known species. But the humans didn't die. Their crews, drenched in sweat and fighting through pain, kept their ships moving. Their armor, designed to survive re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, held together just long enough. Now, Stone commanded, all ships, execute Omega. Marines, launch. The human fleet split apart in a precise pattern, each ship firing its maneuvering thrusters at full power. The G-forces would have killed any other species, but the human crews endured. As the Black Spine weapon tried to track them, hundreds of boarding pods launched from the human ships. Impossible. The Black Spine commander screamed as human Marines cut through his flagship's hull. Our weapon should have killed you all. The Marines stormed through the Black Spine ships like ancient warriors. Their powered armor let them move easily in the low gravity, while the enemy crews stumbled and fell. Hand-to-hand combat in space had been considered impossible by most species, but humans had trained for it, prepared for it, knowing that sometimes the oldest ways of fighting were still the best. Engine room secured, reported a Marine team. Control center taken. Life support under our control. One by one, the Black Spine ships fell silent. Their linked weapon faded as Marines captured or destroyed their power systems. The boarding teams moved with practiced ease through the enemy vessels, their tactics refined by centuries of warfare on Earth. The Lumini watched in awe as the humans demonstrated combat skills they had thought impossible. The human Marines fought in conditions that would incapacitate most species, using tactics that mixed advanced technology with ancient warrior skills. Your ships are taken, Stone transmitted to the Black Spine commander. Your crews are captured. Do you still think we're primitive? The Black Spine commander's reply was to try to activate his ship's self-destruct system, but human Marines had already disabled it. They had learned from Earth's long history of war to always secure such systems first. Throughout the captured Black Spine ships, human Marines worked to secure prisoners and prevent any last acts of defiance. The enemy crews, seeing humans operate easily in their low-gravity environment while wearing full combat armor, finally understood what it meant to fight Deathworlders. All Marine teams report success, the tactical officer announced. Enemy fleet is under our control. Stone looked at the battlefield. The human ships showed heavy damage, their armor scarred and burned. But they had won. Not through superior technology or elegant weapons, but through the strength and determination that Earth had bred into her children. "Send word to the Lumini," Stone ordered. "Tell them their system is secure. And send a message to the Black Spine Empire. This is what happens when you threaten humanity's friends." The battle was over. The Deathworlders had proven that sometimes the most primitive solution, boarding enemy ships and fighting hand-to-hand, could overcome the most advanced technology. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. 2 weeks after the battle, the Galactic Council chambers were packed with representatives from every spacefaring species. The Black Spine Empire's delegation sat in uncomfortable silence as Admiral Stone addressed the assembly. His uniform still showed signs of battle damage. He had refused to change it for this meeting. "The Black Spine fleet has retreated from Lumini space," Stone announced. "Their surviving ships have signed a non-aggression pact, but that's not why I'm here today." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species who had long looked down on humanity. "I'm here to make something clear to everyone in this room." The chamber's main screen showed footage from the battle. Human ships taking hits that should have destroyed them. Human Marines fighting in conditions that would kill most species. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence. "You called us primitive because we still use armor instead of energy shields," Stone continued. "Because we train for physical combat instead of relying on automated systems. Because we build our ships to take hits instead of avoiding them." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Now you know why." The Lumini representative floated forward, their crystalline body glowing with patterns of gratitude. "The human fleet came when no one else would," they sang. "They fought not for territory or resources, but because we once showed them kindness. They are not primitive. They are the strongest allies any species could hope for." Other representatives began to speak. Species that had been watching silently as their neighbors were conquered by the Black Spine Empire now saw a way to resist. The humans had proven that advanced technology alone didn't determine the outcome of battles. "We have already received requests from 12 species for military alliances," Stone announced. "We will accept them all. Earth remembers its friends, and we protect our allies." The Black Spine representative stood, his elegant features twisted with rage. "You cannot," he began. "We can," Stone cut him off. "Your empire thought we were savages because we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Because we learned to fight by hunting animals 10 times our size. Because we still train our soldiers to fight hand-to-hand even in an age of energy weapons." He smiled. "Those things didn't make us primitive. They made us strong." In orbit around the Lumini homeworld, human ships helped rebuild the destroyed defense stations. But these new stations were different, built to human specifications, with thick armor and backup systems. Marine instructors taught Lumini volunteers how to defend their ships, how to fight even when systems failed. "The galaxy is changing," Stone told the Council. "The age of looking down on primitive species is over. Earth extends its hand in friendship to any species that wants to learn our ways. And we extend a warning to any empire that thinks military technology alone brings victory." The Council session ended with a series of new treaties being signed. Trade agreements, military alliances, technology exchanges, but not just with Earth. Other species that had been labeled as primitive were suddenly seen in a new light. The age of judging civilizations by their technology alone was ending. In a quiet moment after the session, Stone stood with the Lumini representative on a viewing platform overlooking Earth. The Lumini's crystalline body sparkled in Earth's sunlight. "My people sing songs about the Deathworlders who came to save us," the Lumini said. "But we don't call you Deathworlders anymore. We call you the Guardians." Stone watched his homeworld spin below. Humans had gone to the stars expecting to find enemies. Instead, they had found friends to protect. Their primitive ways, born from evolving on a hostile world, had turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. We'll help you rebuild, Stone promised, and we'll teach anyone who wants to learn. The galaxy thought Earth was a curse, a death world that should never have produced intelligent life. But they were wrong. Earth was a gift. She made us strong enough to protect others. The Lumini glowed with patterns of hope. Across the galaxy, other species began to understand what humanity had known all along. That true strength came not from having the most advanced technology, but from the will to stand up and fight for what was right. The Deathworlders had become the guardians, and the galaxy would never be the same.